When Shanta Devi turned 68, her son Rahul invited her to move closer to his home in the city. He had just bought a new flat, a spacious one with a separate guest room, a modern kitchen, and a balcony that overlooked the city skyline. "It'll be good for you, Ma," he had said over the phone. "No more living alone. The kids will love having you close." At the time, it sounded perfect. After all, wasn't this what most people dreamed of in their old age? Being close to their children, surrounded by family, included in birthdays, Sunday lunches, and the everyday rhythm of a household? Shanta packed up her things, a few saris, her favorite pressure cooker, some photo albums, and left her old neighborhood behind. The city was a blur of noise and speed, far from the slow hum of life she'd known. But it was fine, she told herself. She would adjust. After all, this was family. The first few weeks were pleasant. The grandchildren were polite and energetic, though often glued to screens. Her daughter-in-law Pooja was courteous but busy, always juggling office calls, meal prep, and school drop-offs. Rahul worked long hours but made time on weekends to take her out for dosas or a walk in the park. "Seema, this is better, isn't it?" he'd ask. She nodded, though something inside her disagreed. Soon, subtle cracks began to show. On one hand, she was always welcome. But she was never quite part of things. Meals were quick affairs, often eaten at different times. Plans were made, but she was sometimes told after they were finalized. "Oh, we didn't think you'd want to come," Pooja would say, not unkindly, but with that distant politeness that made Shanta feel like an outsider in her own family. She began to realize something important. Proximity did not equal inclusion. Living near her children meant she was always close, yes, but it also meant they assumed she'd always be available. She became the last-minute babysitter, the errand runner, the one who waited at home for deliveries or maintenance workers. "Ma, since you're free during the day," began too many requests. But she wasn't always free. She had joined a temple group nearby, started meeting some neighbors in the park, yet those plans were often disrupted. "Can you come over in the afternoon? Just for an hour?" Rahul would ask. Of course, she could never say no. What hurt more was the slow erosion of independence. When she lived alone, she decided what to cook, when to clean, when to rest. Here she adjusted her rhythm to theirs. She felt hesitant to cook the strong-flavored curries she liked because the children were fussy. Her morning bhajans were turned down to avoid disturbing anyone's sleep. Even her clothes changed. No more bright cottons, just the muted pastels Pooja had gifted her. One afternoon, she mentioned to her daughter-in-law that she was thinking of visiting her cousin in another city for a week. Pooja looked up from her laptop, surprised. "Oh, but what about Aryan's school play? And we were hoping you could help next weekend. Rahul's out of town." Shanta smiled and nodded, but something inside her folded quietly. The proximity had created expectations, not connection. She wasn't the guest or the elder relative offering wisdom and receiving affection. She was the fallback plan, the ever-available support system. Worse still, arguments that would have been softened by distance became sharper. Small differences in values, habits, and opinions turned into subtle tensions. She disliked how Rahul and Pooja handled the children's screen time. She winced at how casually they spoke to each other, sometimes with irritation or sarcasm. But this was not her home. She had to remain silent. Once, during a dinner conversation, she offered an opinion about a news story. Rahul, without looking up, said, "Ma, you don't really understand how things work these days." The remark stung, not because it was harsh, he hadn't meant to be cruel, but because it was dismissive. The same boy she had raised now treated her as someone out of touch, someone to be respected from afar but not taken seriously. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, wondering if she had made a mistake. She had come closer to feel more connected, but what she had found was a form of invisibility wrapped in polite gestures. A few days later, she met an old neighbor in the park. Jita Auntie had also moved her daughter 2 years ago, but had recently returned to her village. "Living near children is not the same as living with them," she said. "When we lived far, they missed us. They called, they visited with love. Now, it's all routine, duty, no warmth, just assumption." Shanta knew exactly what she meant. The decision came quietly. No drama, just a steady realization. She called Rahul and said, "Beta, I've decided to move back to my old place. I miss my routine, my home. There was silence on the other end. But you're not happy here? I'm not unhappy, she said. But I miss belonging somewhere. Here, I'm always close but never really included. It's not your fault. It's just different. Rahul didn't understand. Pooja said she respected her decision. The kids hugged her and said they'd visit. She knew they probably wouldn't often, but that was fine. Back in her little house, with its creaky windows and the lemon tree in the courtyard, Shanta felt something she hadn't in months: peace. She cooked what she liked, played her bhajans at full volume, and invited the neighborhood kids for ladoos. She still spoke to Rahul every week. The calls were warm again, filled with interest and updates. Distance had brought back affection. Space had made room for love. Living near her children had not been a curse. But it wasn't the gift she thought it would be either. It was a lesson that in old age, closeness is not measured in kilometers, but in how you are made to feel. And sometimes, love breathes better when it's given room.